Every Who down in Whoville liked Agile a lot, but the Grinch who lived just north of Whoville did not. The Grinch hated Agile, the whole Agile mindset. Now please don't ask why, there's just no answer we get. It could be that he liked to command and control. It could be, perhaps, his style was droll. But I think that the most likely reason of all, he was afraid of change that could be his downfall. Whatever the reason, his fears or his views, he stood there on the eve of the sprint, hating the Whos, staring down from his office with a sour, grinchy face at the warm-lighted cubes below in their space. For he knew every Who down in Whoville below was refining, getting backlogs ready to go. And they're estimating their stories, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow's sprint planning, it's practically here. Then he growled with his grinchy fingers nervously drumming, I must find a way to stop Agile from coming. For tomorrow he knew all scrum teams far and wide would wake bright and early and rush to plan side by side. And then, oh, the noise, noise. That's one thing he hated, the noise. Then all the Whos, young and old, would sit down to plan, and they'd plan. They would break down their stories and poker the lot, which was something that made the Grinch angry and hot. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together and commit to the plan. They'd stand peer-to-peer and develop hand in hand. They'd design and they'd develop and test. And the more the Grinch thought of the harmony Agile would bring, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 3 program increments I've put up with it now. I must stop Agile from working, but how? Then he got an awful idea, a wonderful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what I'll do, the Grinch laughed in his throat, and he made a quick project manager hat and coat. And he chuckled and clucked, what a great Grinchy thing. With this coat and this hat, command and control is what I'll bring. All I need is a Gantt chart. The Grinch looked around, but since Gantt charts are hard, there were none to be found. But did that stop the old Grinch? No. The Grinch simply said, if I can't find a Gantt chart, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max and took some pens of red, and he made up some numbers off the top of his head. Then loaded some folders and some empty old sacks on a ramshackle Yugo, and he climbed in with Max. Then the Grinch said, giddy up, and the Yugo started down toward the cubes of the Whos who were out on the town. All their desktops were dark, a quiet hum filled the air, all the Whos were at lunch without a care. When he came to the first little cube on the square, this is stop number 1, the old Grinchy PM hissed, and he climbed in the cube, empty bags in his fist. Then he sat down at the desk, a rather tight pinch, but if the millennials could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once, for a moment or two. Then he stuck out his head for a better view, where the little Who Kanbans all hung in a row. These Kanbans, he grinned, are the first things to go. Then he slithered and slunk with a devious sneer. Around the whole room the whiteboards he smeared. Epics and features, enablers and spikes, he grabbed all the artifacts he really dislikes, and he stuffed them in bags, and with a big heave-ho, he stuffed the bags right in the old Yugo. Then he slunk to the team board and ruined it all. He grabbed the Post-its and made a crumpled ball. He destroyed the plan quick as a flash. He even took the spare Post-it note stash. He bagged it all up with lots of glee, and now, grinned the Grinch, I am finally free. He took other stuff to the window to shove, when he heard the sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around fast and saw the small Who, little Cindy Lou who was hired brand new. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter, who left her cube for a cup of water. She stared at the Grinch and said, Project Manager, why? Why are you taking our Agile boards, why? But you know, that old Grinch was so smart and slick, he thought up a lie and thought it up quick. Why, my good lady, the fake PM lied, there's an estimate on this board that we just can't let slide. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll estimate it there and bring it back here. And this fib fooled the new worker, and he shook her hand. He got her a drink and set her back to Cubeland. And when Cindy Lou Who went back to her cube with her cup, he went to the window and stuffed the board up. The burn-down chart was the last to go. Then he went out himself to arrange the Yugo. On the walls he left nothing but hooks in a row. And the one speck of plan that was left on the wall for a quick hello world was even too small. Then he did the same thing to the other Who teams, leaving plans too small for anyone's dreams. It was 1:15 all the Who's still at lunch, and the Grinch started packing his car by the bunch. Packed it up with features, their stories, their plans, their goals, their estimates, the very work of their hands. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. Pooh-pooh to the Who's, he was grinchiously humming. They're finding out now that no Agile is coming. They're just getting back. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open for a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will cry, "What should we do?" "That's a noise," grinned the Grinch, "I simply must hear." So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the row. It started in low, then started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, this sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry. Very. He stared down at Whoville, the Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was planning, without any post-it notes at all. He hadn't stopped Agile from coming. It came, somehow or the other. It came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without post-its, it came without strings, it came without big process or complicated things. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't thought of before. Maybe Agile, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Agile, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the afternoon light, and he brought back the stories and the plans and the sprints, and he himself, the Grinch, Scrum Master training begins.